Hiya! Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all my beautiful solar flares and solar flare-ettes. Let's get back started. You already know the Cafe Flair Enchant. Chapter 5 looks like we're going to be going over Karu, Mr. Karu-san. So let's load and begin. Hopefully you guys' day has been going well, mine's has been alright. I really don't like the rain, and it's been raining every single day for the past almost week and a half now. So wherever you are in the world, just make sure you stay dry, stay happy, and stay flairific. As rays of morning light urge me awake, small birds sing out on the wire. It was a morning a few days after our visit to the fairy world, YEOW. I moved to start the day of cleaning, was in the middle of wiping the tables. Phew, that should do it. I should be just in time for opening at this rate. Cafes truly are so busy in the mornings and the best time to visit. Like, we had a coffee cartel down the street. Well, it's in Central West End, and it was open 24 hours before they closed it just unexpectedly a few years ago. That was my very favorite place to go get coffee. Not Starbucks. There's also Park Avenue, but Coffee Cartel. Look it up. It's closed, but it was in St. Louis, Missouri. So cafes truly are so busy in the mornings, but I was getting into the swing of it. Checking all the expiration dates on the food and storage, the morning opening, gathering all the trash from the day before and rushing out to throw it all away. And on weekdays, receiving deliveries from vendors and make sure they deliver the right product, because then you pretty much almost stuck with it. I mean, they'll come back and pick it up, but yeah, just make sure you always check thoroughly before you sign off on that sheet. When you think about what needs to be done to open shop, you just begin to wake earlier. True. It was a huge difference from living at home, where I'd always sleep to the very last minute. Still, even though I make everything look nice, it's not like any new customers will come by. Dropping my shoulders and with a listless smile, I wring my towel and kept cleaning. Well, that's not important anyway. Okay, once I'm done here, I need to clean the storefront and water the plants. Since Canis had those flowers he'd been growing in the backyard garden, I wonder if decorating with those would be fun. I cleaned for another 5 minutes or so. I finished polishing the tables enough to pat myself on the back for it. So shiny. With some time to spare, I continued my cleaning frenzy to the far room. It wasn't used very much, but that's no excuse. Excuse me, y'all. It wasn't used very much, but that's no excuse to be lazy about cleaning it. It still needed to be done. Went too fast. I'm just gonna make up something. Here is the door to all other worlds! The other entrance to Enchant. It hasn't ceased to amaze me. The scene I saw only a week before. It was all still burned into my vision. Yggdrasil, literally a giant tree that covered an entire world. A world that quickly walks through the 4 seasons, a world of fairies. And also the fairy queen Titania and Veneer, who serves at her side. Thinking back to that day we walked across that world, my hand slowly comes to my chest. The homes of everyone here, worlds of fairies, demons, beasts, and the heavens. Beyond this door, there are so many worlds to see. ... I want to go to them. Yes, we're brave. We're not no scary goof. Honestly, I could feel the desire within me. Going to the fairy world and taking just a glimpse at all its wondrous sights probably triggered this feeling. The charm of another world when things unbelievable in my normal life was pounding at my chest. Unseen worlds. Unseen sights. And the people I've yet to meet. By making new acquaintances one after another. And if those people would come to Enchanté, I'm sure that would be a marvelous thing. Yay, a cafe for other worlds. That would be like so tight. A place for someone to be, huh? This place I already called my own, Enchanté. If this cafe could be a place, like for them, for Mr. Demon King and everyone else, I'd be happy if it could be for others too. And for that to happen, yeah, I've got to do my best. Let's go, Renone-san. First, I have to be an amazing owner. One step at a time. Urging myself onward, I turn away from the gate and begin walking away. Oh shoot, it's that creature. Entity. ... More dots. Feeling like I heard something, I turn back and listen carefully. ... But I didn't hear any noise after that. And instead...
あれ?今日はお出迎えのサービス付き?
Mr. Demon King, who just happened to arrive, gave a pleasant smile. Oh! Welcome. I guess I just imagined that. It was a really peculiar sound though.
そこのかわいいマスターさん、一応の開店時間までもう時間ないけど。
You're right. That's right. I didn't have time to just stand there. I tie up my apron and walk off, pumping myself up. Pump, pump, pump me up. All right, I'll do my best today too. Gonna get to 5 figures in sales. That's a little bit overambitious, but hey, the sky is not the limit, y'all.
私たちがメディオを訪れてからもう4日、5日、1週間ですか。
Yes, but it doesn't feel like that much time has really passed. I can still remember everything that happened there so clearly, how the seasons changed and...
あれは実に見事でした。試しに SNS にアップしたところ、閲覧数が大変なことになりましたよ。
What's his social media handle? Right. You posted it? What an alternate world looked like?
それでか。帰ってから延々と林道に説教食らってたのは。
うちの天使様はどこまでも人間界に毒されてるな。
A simple black coffee, carbonated until bubbly, with a scoop of vanilla ice cream on top. Ooh! For fans of sweets, the bitter coffee and sweet ice cream. Yes, coffee float. It's like, I don't really like root beer, but yeah, that coffee float, I'm definitely gonna have to try that out soon. I'm gonna let you know how I'm gonna let you know how it tastes, y'all. The three of them talk amongst themselves while taking sips of their drinks. It seemed like they were still excited about visiting a non-human world, as if it was their first time. How y'all all friends and you ain't visit each other's
別の
world?
世界って感覚久々だったよ。人間界に初めて来た時もそうだったけど。
I see.
当たり前にてめえらの顔見てるせいか、そいつの世界に行くとか考えたこともなかったからな。
The time came when I normally want to close the morning menu. The regulars were talking with excitement about YEOW throughout the morning. I can understand how number 2 feels. It was definitely a sight you'd want to share with other people.
その通りです。私は人間らしい行為をしたまで、つまり無罪ということですね。
Well,
ああ、とりあえずそこは大丈夫でしょう。ここは異世界ですとかコメントしたわけじゃないし。それでさ、実際どうだった？こことは違う世界に行ってみて。
where are we going to next? Probably GPM since Kawi was on the front of this chapter. Mr. Demon King blindsided me with his question. Number 2 and Ignis both turn their faces toward me, waiting for my reply, and a silence falls over the cafe. Let me think. Of course, I'd even doubted their entire existence at first. Then it was scary. But coming back here after visiting one, if I were to put it into a single word, ... I think it was fun. Traveling to an alternate world, what I saw and touched, what I heard and felt. I would have never come across those things if I continued my old lifestyle, getting yelled at by my old ignorant ass boss. That was just an add-on, y'all. So, if it's possible, I want to tell the old me who thought my old work was the only life I could possibly have, maybe you don't have to go to another world, but there are so many things you could change if you just lift up your head. I let out my feelings after thinking it over thoroughly. And I'm Enchant's owner now. This time we only went to Canas' world, but being able to learn a bit more about everyone like this makes me happy. Mr. Demon King gently smiles as I answered him.
そっか。君にとって今回のことがプラスに働いたなら何よりだ。君たちも現マスターがより俺たちに関心を持ってくれて嬉しいんじゃない？
Ignis looks a bit off to the side as number 2 smiles as he usually does.
まあなんだ、少しはアンシャンテのマスターっぽいんじゃねえの？
ええ、これも愛につながる一歩なのでしょう。やはり互いを知ることは重要なのですね。
I looked on as everyone chattered away happily, my face loosening into a smile. This really is nice. I felt like this sight had become natural to see for me. Although, unfortunately, Canas and Mr. Kawu weren't there. But even with demons, angels, or humans, everyone gathered here in peace. Carrying over more coffee, I joined from time to time in conversation. I'm sure that this is what Enchant really was supposed to look like. Well, what Enchant was really supposed to look like. I'm sure it was what Grandpa saw that made him smile. Grandpa, I'm sure he wanted to see this sight forever and ever. A bit saddened by the thought, I closed my eyes. Just then, what disturbed the silence was the sound of the doorbell from the rear entrance. Oh, welcome!
おう、リンド。
I was this guy.
ちょうど今、あの首なし鉄仮面の。
Oh, it's a new person. Yay! First customer! Dot, 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 dot. Is this like a human or is this from an alternate world person? Let's find out, y'all.
首なし鉄仮面
Probably a human.
は
As everyone turned around, the clamorous activity came to a sudden halt. Everyone turned their gaze. These days, the only regular that would be using the rear entrance will be Mr. Karu. Or so I thought. But standing there wasn't the usual Mr. Karu that we all knew and loved. It was a much younger boy. Who are you?
どちら様ってお客様のつもりだけどこの店営業してんだよね表看板出てたけど
Of course. Welcome. My heart was jumping around so much that I almost forgot to show him a seat. Glancing at me, the boy sits at the counter and opens the menu. Hopefully I get to make some coffee or like some food. Like I'm not gonna lie, y'all. Like I've just been replaying Coffee Talk, so this is definitely like hopefully it gives me a chance to make some type of drink.
じゃあこのアイスコーヒーの M サイズ
Ew. Although cold brew is good, but iced coffee, just iced coffee, ew. Oh, please let me know if you have any preferences to how it's brewed.
よくわかんないしお任せで
Understood. Please wait just a moment. Oh God, a new customer? I, of course, was warned that this would be possible. It is true that delivery trucks and public service people can get to the cafe.
何
Oh no, it's nothing. My behavior came out as nothing else but awkward to this unforeseen circumstance. Meanwhile, I looked over to see if Mr. Demon King and the others were just as taken aback as I was. Well, yeah, I should have guessed as much. There's our smiling demon lord and the relaxed fallen angel as normal as can be. Ignis seemed like the only one who was a bit nervous, just like me. It seemed he was glancing at the new customers back time to time.
偶然の来店でしょうか。であれば数年ぶりの出来事ですが。前回はそうだ四天王がどうのこうのって女の子だ。いや自分で言うのもなんだけどアンシャンテの即席結界はあらが多いね。
笑って済ませていいのかよそれ。とりあえず普通の客ってんならほっときゃすぐに帰るだろ。
The fact that my regulars talked just like normal without lowering their voices at all filled me with fear. Fortunately, he was fiddling with his phone and didn't seem to notice the conversation between the regulars. Although he's staring at me really, really hard. Now that I think about it, I'd always been preparing to just get the cafe open. That I have no idea how to do customer service. Customer service sucks. Work for yourself, y'all. Don't deal with customers that sit here and talk down to you, talk at you. Like, it's just so much. I'm venting a bit. I apologize. Anyway, I just have to not be rude. Be quick and service with a smile. Here's your iced coffee.
どうも
I was complimenting myself on the inside for not spilling anything. I finally realized that was just how nervous I was. So when a new customer comes in and sits at the counter, am I supposed to talk with them? No. You just, stand at the, bar counter and just clean. And if they want to talk to you, then they'll talk to you. Unless they kind of have the aura or the energy around them that you're like, hey, talk to me. But most people just want to just be left alone. No, but it's possible they feel I'm just bothering them. With my hands open, I went to wash some dishes, and while I was frowning at myself, letting out a small groan.
いや、隣いいかな。
Yay, Mr. Demon King to the rescue. Before I knew it, our demon lord sat right in the seat right next to the boy.
えまあはい。
ありがとう。マスター、ブレンドコーヒーちょうだい。
Okay, I'll bring it out right away. What is Mr. Demon King doing? I just hope he doesn't say anything weird, and right as I think that...
それで、君は人間に見えるけど、実はそうじゃないってタイプ。
See, I was thinking that myself. I'm like, he looks human, but there's just, you know, some type of... I don't know. It just seemed like he was maybe otherworldly, but I don't know. I didn't want to be mistaken. So I was just like, okay, human boy.
は
The young boy's confusion spills out. Or maybe Mr. Demon King and I are wrong. Who knows? Let's find out. What made that seem 100 times more intense was probably my own feelings. Ignis seemed to share my sentiment. His gasping and coughing made it all the way here to the counter from his seat. Hey, Mr. I tried to cut him off, but Mr. Demon King gave me a quick wink to suggest he had it all under control.
お兄さん、見た目もあれだけど、中身もやばい感じの人なの。
まあ、やばいかやばくないかで言うとめちゃくちゃやばいね。なんたって俺、魔王様だから。そういう意味で君もやばい存在じゃないのかな。
急に気温が下がりましたね。冷房でも入れたのでしょうか。
は？冷房なんぞ。うわ、なんだ、足元なんかめっちゃ冷てえぞ。
Oh shoot, he's like an ice demon? Yay! Well, he's a fire demon. But his sister is a ice demon. Even though they were both born from the ice demoness. So yeah. Anyway, What's happening? Number 2 and Ignis seem to be making a fuss. But for now, I should stop the water I was running and go over and listen to what Mr. Demon King's talking about. I was taken aback by my realization. The water, it stopped, or actually, what's going on? The entire faucet's just frozen?
なるほど。君ってさ。
That moment. The small boy slapped a 1,000 yen bill onto the counter and ran out of the cafe. Huh? Thank you, but what about your
あ
change?
ら、せっかくの人外同士仲良くしようと思ったのに。
Stretching out the wrinkled bill, I see the 1,000 yen bill. There, I made it up. A non-human? I know there's a button to where I can view the past dialogue, but I don't know which one it is.
本当に普通のお客さんが入る場合もあるから、資格を含めてきちんとマスター修行をするのは無駄にはならないよ。
I'll save just in case. Let's see here. But what are those requirements?
まあその辺は別の機会にでも説明するよ。とりあえず現に君やリンド その他 GPM とか来店できてるでしょ。
That's right. After we reopened, Mr. Demon King explained to me more about how other customers could get into the cafe through the barrier. And that was one, by just knowing of Enchanté's existence, its name, address, and heading to it. I mean, that's how I got here. I just use a map app. That's how deliveries and other services can get here too. 2, that you're a non-human with powers that outdo even Mr. Demon King's and 2's own. It seemed like that boy just happened to come by and come in. I think the first condition wouldn't apply here. So then, I'd have no idea just by looking at him. The second option seemed like the one, so he was another non-human? He was one too?
そうだね。この辺の飲み物とか、あとはその水道とか、意図的じゃないにせよ、彼の力が原因。
Mr. Demon King picks up the iced coffee that was completely frozen solid and flips it over upside down.
来店した時、なんかモヤモヤしたものを背負ってるなとは思ってたけど、彼。
Although I still had questions toward Mr. Demon King's vague explanation, the first thing I needed to point out was, you acted like you wanted to be friendly, but it didn't look that way at all. A demon lord can't come up and start messing with a kid who looks like he's in school. I decided to caution Mr. Demon King in his overly aggressive
あれ
interaction.
俺そんなに感じ悪かった？すっごいフレンドリーににこやか爽やか営業スマイルのつもりで。
Huh? Yeah, you were that bad.
いやいや、控えめに言っても貴様人間ではないが、化けの皮を剥いでやろうって聞こえたぞ。
私も右に同じです。
あれそんなつもりはなかったんだけどな。魔王様、ちょこっとショック。
With that said, the curtain closed on the panic, brought by the sudden visitor, ending with the visitor leaving on his own. Yeah, okay. Don't worry so much, Mom. It's okay. I'm doing all right here. I feel like this is worth so much more than the work I was doing before, and Grandpa's friends are helping me out. And the customers that come here are good people? With the question mark. Huh? Oh, no, it's okay. Yeah, I'll come by when things settle down. I'm working now, so I'll call you later. Sorry for the wait. It was just after 5 in the afternoon. Around this time, when the setting sun's rays come through the cafe, all the regulars are about doing their own thing. I drop my head, with Canis and Mr. Rendo sitting at the counter, and get back to work.
いや、構わぬとも。あなたの家族からの連絡だろう。
Yeah, it's been about 4 months now since leaving home. Just a call to check if I'm doing okay over here.
離れて暮らす一人娘か。親御さんは心配だろうね。人外のことを伏せてるんでしょ？
Well, for now I just avoid it. But I feel I'll need to tell them the truth at some point. I'm sure my mom and dad would make a fuss. I think it's okay to leave it for now.
まあ、喫茶店経営だけならまだしも、男が複数人宿を借りることもあるっていうのは伏せておきたいよね。
なぜだ？アンシャンテに宿泊する際、我らは特に問題を起こしてはいないと思うが。
It's the principalities, Canis. It's the principalities. The armor-clad knight disputes the point, shaking the head he didn't have side to side. Looking away from where I thought his face would be, I mutter quietly, you know, I'm sure no one's really conscious about it, but I am a girl. And Canis and you are all men. So that means, you know, it'd be easy for my folks to misunderstand. Mr. Karu, stop laughing and help me.
でもそこがわからないからこそカヌスらしくていいと思うんだけどな。
In any case, we end our conversation and I take their orders. Okay, Canis, you want a fruit smoothie? I wonder what kind of fruit it has in it. And Mr. Karu, an Americano. Sort for American coffee, made by running plenty of hot water through lightly roasted beans, giving it a refreshing taste. It's an Americano. I want that fruit smoothie though. The Americano might take a bit more time. Is that okay?
もちろん。この時間のお客さんは僕たちだけみたいだしね。
Thank you very much. Oh, that's right. Speaking of customers, suddenly coming to mind, I began to speak while heating some water. This happened yesterday, but
我々以外の客が入った。
right. I was like, oh no, and panicked. The two men were both out yesterday, so it was a good opportunity to talk about it. I tell them of the boy that suddenly just came into the store, and the two looked at each other in bewilderment.
それはまた随分と珍しいな。アンシャンテの結界の特性上、そういったことも可能性としてありえない話ではないが。
Also, according to Mr. Demon King's judgment, the boy seemed like he was a non-human.
おお、それは驚きの連続ってやつだね。
Right. Though I don't know if it was by his power, but for a moment yesterday, the piping and everything had frozen over. If you just looked at him, he seemed like a normal boy. That made me even more surprised. After sharing the information I had, Mr. Karu mutters behind the steam from his Americano.
と言ってもさ、昨日だけの来店なら単なる偶然で片付くんじゃない？
No, he gonna come back.
僕がここに来るようになった数年の間でも何回かはそういう偶然があったって
そうだな。GPM のように店を襲撃してくるわけでもなし、特に気にせずだよ。
Shots fired.
その説はご迷惑を。
It's true. Canis is right. It's not like we have to get into a panic just because someone new came into the cafe. And I mean, excuse me, oh my goodness, I'm choking, y'all. A cafe that panics over customers coming in already seems problematic.
というか、仮にアンシャンテ常連に人外が増えたら、また僕の仕事が増えるんだな。大変。
アンシャンテとしては良いことかもしれんだろう。諦めて仕事に精進することだな。
これでも真面目にやってるんだけどね。実を言うと、うちの部署とか今メディオの件でてんてこまいなんだよ。
What about Medio? Wait, was there some kind of problem because we all went to Medio? I nervously ask my question, but Mr. Karu laughs and waves his hand, dismissing my concerns.
誰がどうこうとか、世界の危機がとか、そんなんじゃないよ。というか、誰かのせいって言うなら、僕自身のせいだし。
Dot dot dot. Depending on who you ask, information on the fairy world YEOW inside the GPM is scarce. It's considered an unusual world. Normally, written reports or testimonies by Canis would have been enough.
僕が生で妖精の動画を撮った件とか、あとはサンプルにいいかなって数枚頂戴した落ち葉とか草花がね。
Of course you did.
もう開発班に大受けでさ、おまけに詳しく話を聞かせろって連日朝から晩まで捕まっちゃって。
It seemed like Mr. Karu hadn't shown up here much after coming. Excuse me. It seemed like Mr. Karu hadn't shown up here much after coming back from YEOW. I suppose that's what's been going on. I see. It must have been something considering the work the GPM
もういっ
does.
そ現地住人のカヌスに任意同行してもらってそのまま話をしてもらいたいくらいだよ。
断る。先ほど自分で言っていたろ。まさに自業自得ではないか。それにベスティアのように GPM が頻繁にやってきてはティターニアたちに申し訳が立たぬ。
Oh, they be traveling to Ignis's world like that? Dang. There was one word that hit me. Bestia? You mean Ignis's homeworld, right? What sort of connection does his world and Bestia have? Or Bestia. It seems like it would be pronounced Bestia. Canis nods deeply as if acknowledging my question.
我もイグニスから聞いた話なのだが、GPM は何らかの方法でベスティアへと直接干渉していると聞く。イグニス本人もベスティアで幾度も人の群れを見かけているらしいからな。
Somehow able to travel? Wait, does the GPM also have a gate that goes to alternate worlds like ours? Canis and I looked toward Mr. Karu.
惜しい。ほぼ正解だけど本部にあるのはゲートじゃないよ。
He pours some milk into his Americano and puts up two
確か前に
fingers.
説明があったと思うけどさ、異世界に行くための方法として2種類の転送法があるってやつ。
Ah, right. You're talking about gates and wormholes. Wormholes. I recall the conversation we had about homeworlds just before going to YEOW, just like the one in Enchanté. There are several gates that connect to alternate worlds, and there are wormholes, distortions in space that appear haphazardly. You can only travel in one direction through them, and they are incredibly unstable. If you happen to fall into one, it would be nothing but unfortunate. That's how it was explained to me. So then, the GPM headquarters has a wormhole?
そう。普通ホールって言ったらどんなに何を思ったのか。うちに所属している変態で天才な変態がそれを固定開閉できるようにしちゃってね。その結果ベスティアについては固定した直通路が確保されていてね。いや。
Oh wow, I didn't know that was possible.
GPM も伊達に国家組織を名乗ってはいないな。人材の層も厚いように思える。
どうかな。規格外に優秀なやつってどこにでもいるもんじゃない？性格とか人格とかはさておきね。
A crazy genius. I wonder what kind of person they are to be called something like that.
ごちそうさま。さてさて、仕事地獄なおじさんは今からもう一頑張りかな。
I know how that feels. Nobody wants to be at work unless you get paid to just lay around. Good luck.
詰めすぎるな。お前もよく言うように、人は脆いのだから。
なんだろう、心配されてるのは嬉しいんだけど、年齢的な意味で言われてる気がするよ。
気のせいだ。
I take his payment and Mr. Karu begins to put on his suit.
そうだ、話が戻っちゃうんだけどさ、ここに来た人外の男の子について聞いた話じゃ害をなすような子じゃないとは思うけど、念のため僕の方でも GPM のデータベースを紹介してみるよ。何か特徴とか覚えてる限りで教えてもらえるかな。目鼻立ちでも会話の仕方でも。
Features, huh? I try to think back to what I saw that day. Just by looking at him, he really did look like just an ordinary middle schooler. Maybe about 160 centimeters tall, and he had a slender build. As for features that stood out, one thing stood out in particular. That boy had really beautiful white hair. That's right, he had shining, silken white hair that would stand out even if he was in the middle of town. It's Inuyasha and Susuru's little brother. Our child. Who knows?
氷を使う
White hair and can control ice? The one who reacted to what I said was not Mr. Karu, but Canis. Canis?
なるほどね。そこまで特徴があるなら探すのは難しくなさそうだ。何か分かったら報告するよ。
リンド、その報告できれば我にも届けてもらえるだろうか。
それはもちろんいいけど、何か気がかりなことでも？
いや、これはともかく調べてもらえるとありがたい。
了解。頑張りますよ。
Late at night before the next day.
いや、調べるとは言ったけどさ、普通報告した途端に即作業しろとか言う？
Complaining about the higher up asking for the impossible, Mr. Karu holds a cup of instant coffee in a room that, aside from him, was vacant. He was working overtime.
ああ、やだやだ。僕もいつかの彼女じゃないけど、老気に訴えてやろうかな。
The coffee wasn't necessarily bad. I do miss the taste of Enchanté though. But I suppose that this does come with a nice price. It's free. I should probably have a male voice, but I suck at male voices. I just sound like a little boy. But I suppose that this does come with a nice price. It's free. I can't be too picky given the situation.
で、例の謎の少年の特徴はと。
My fingers brushing against key after key. I enter in the information. I'm accessing the database of confirmed non-humans in the human world. So essentially an encyclopedia of people to watch out for. I don't feel great that I have to use this though.
身長と年齢、髪の色。あとは能力と報告年数で絞って。
And right after I press the enter key.
ジャストで該当。てっきり未確認の人外だと思ってたけど、名前は阿部刈谷くんね。14歳の中学2年生。体が弱く学校を休みがち。登録されてる理由はと。
His face went stern at the text displayed on his computer.
チェンジリング
A changeling. Changelings? A well-known part of folklore passed down from olden Europe. A phenomenon where a human child that was just born would be taken away by a fairy on a whim in exchange with a baby fairy. Ah. Okay.
っていう感じで 人間界には伝わってたかな。
In that case, he might be related to Medio. This Karia Abi kid.
カヌスが気にかけてたことに関係があるのかな。
While in thought, I sipped my instant coffee. Yeah! Instant coffee's horrible. Never get instant coffee. You better just get you some Folgers.
おやおや、そこにいるのは情報課課長こと人外ひしめくアンシャンテの監視役などという羨ましくもけしからん役目を任されている林道薫ではないかね。
Now, what is that creature? It looks like a little tiny baby fox. Or cat with a tattoo on the back. Not this guy. Was practically spelled out on his face. My face. My poker face was usually very good, but it just fell apart here. This guy here in this place had a look that suggested he might have just broken out of jail, or maybe a foster home. But no, he was my old friend, the chief of development, Akira Mikaido. It was none other than the crazy genius.
やあやあ、今日も残業ご苦労様だね。
He looks
それとも
super pretty
アンシャン
though.
テでまた何
Ah,
か
can you
新しい発
imagine
見でもした
Akira
のか
and
な？
Karu together? Okay, next sentence.
妬ましい、羨ましい。ただでさえレア中のレアな人外に囲まれる天国のような生活を約束されているというのに、しかも GPM 史上初の妖精界メディオの現地行きまでなぜ僕に黙っていたのかね、白状者。
After receiving a barrage of words, a heavy fatigue fell over me.
あのさ、ミカド。僕一人しかいないとはいえ、職場で大声出すのはどうかと思うよ。あと前も言ったけど、お前を連れて行くとさ、あそこの人外図からの信頼がさらに失われちゃうわけだよ。血液採取を挨拶代わりにするような変態科学者様は、自重って言葉を知らないみたいだしね。
ふふん、仕方あるまい。人外とはそれだけ魅力的な存在なのだから。つまりはこの僕の学術的好奇心の方がはるかに価値が高いに決まっているじゃないか。養成所ティターニア、僕も会ってみたかった。それはもうきっととてつもなく表現のしようがないほどに素晴らしい人外なのだろうね。
Mr. Karu, me, praises his past self for not taking along this walking disaster of a freak who could barely keep his breathing in check. And also, because he knew that the reason this guy wanted to meet and research non-humans wasn't just because he was curious.
まったく、林道は意地が悪いにも程がある。ね。
Fox-like stuffed toy. Oh, okay, so it's not even alive. It did look like a fox, I was right about that. Akira was tilting his head toward and talking to the stuffed animal on his shoulder. ... I let out a sigh. Moments after, I realized he was making a pretty nasty face. He decided to hold his tongue.
ああ、それで林道。結局、君はまずそうなコーヒーをすすりつつ、業務時間外に何をしていたのかね。
まあちょっと調べ物をな。
どれどれ。
Oh my gosh, don't you like say before someone comes up to you? Before someone comes up to me? You better Windows L that thing and password encrypt it. His body was small enough to slip by me, and Akira swooped up the computer I was using for my research.
おお、チェンジリングか。ロマンがあるよね。またの名を先祖返りとも言う。しかし、へえ、この個体すごいじゃないか。
何がさ。
だってずいぶん長生きしてるじゃないか。チェンジリングの対象者はだいたい5年持てばいい方さ。おや、知らなかったのかい？まあでもそうか。情報課課長といえど全ての人外の知識があるわけではないか。
Mikado flutters his coat as he boasts.
何しろ本来人間界にいるべきでない存在だ。生まれる世界を間違いで誕生してしまったものなのだから。そうだな。例えて言うなら人間がうっかり猛毒の空気の中に生まれたようなものだね。いやー、10年以上生きてる個体なんて極めて珍しい存在だと断言できるよ。
Great, now I led him to another test subject. Darn.
それで君はなんで彼を調べてたんだい？捕まえて研究対象にしていいの
Ignoring this fool and his comment that strayed him further away from humanity, I think seriously for a moment.
人間界では長く生きられない妖精がアンシャンテを訪れた理由。偶然なら別に。でも、それ以外だとしたら、理由は何だ？同じ妖精であるカヌスの存在に気づいた。自分の体の不調から無意識のうちにメディオの気配に引き寄せられた。
It wasn't impossible.
でも、もしそうだとしたら、猶予はもうほとんどない。
With a serious face on, I began to move. The next GPM mission was unfolding. Back at Enchanté. The next day, with the information that I unfortunately had to go to Mikado for, I quickly dove into action. Protection of friendly non-humans. If the GPM truly believes that it is one of its purposes, there's only one thing I could do. Under a rainy sky pouring down like running tears.
たく、なんで俺がてめえの用事に付き合わなきゃなんなんだよ。
悪いね。後で美味しいお肉を盛るからさ。
Good cuts of meat. It was a pretty sudden request. I guess I can't blame Ignis for complaining. Honestly, I would have rather spoken with Canis, as this is a Medio matter.
彼、タイミング悪くメディオで外せない用事があるみたいでさ。
まあ、護衛っつってもガキが相手だろ。散歩ついでにやってやら。
I needed a fill-in for Canis, so here we are. Ignis was good enough, especially if I needed him as a support for a fight. We continue walking in search for the boy. I already contacted Renoni and told her about Karia Abi really was and the danger he was facing. I'm sure we could save the details about changelings later once we regroup with Canis.
話をしておとなしくついてきてくれればいいんだけどな。
つか、肝心のそのガキはどこにいやがんだよ。家にもいなかったんだろ。
少なくとも今の家族との不仲ではないみたいだけどね。むしろかなり関係としては良好みたいだ。ただカリア君自身がかなり放浪癖があるのか、ほとんど家にはいないみたいでね。
じゃあ地道に探すしかねえってか。
まさか。これでも僕は情報家だよ。彼の自宅に寄ったのはあくまで保険。目撃情報やその他もろもろ。彼がいる可能性が高い場所くらいはちゃんと目星をつけてるって。
With that, we arrive at a spot about 30 minutes away from Enchanté.
俺はまた素敵な隠れ家をチョイスしたね。
We arrived at the warehouse of an abandoned factory. There were stains of rust all over it. Holes filled the walls and the roof. They were useless against the rain that was falling now. It was a pretty wide building and didn't feel cramped in the slightest. But thinking about a young kid spending time out here all alone, I can't say it was making me feel great.
さて、それじゃあ中でお仕事と行きますか。
なんかあれば呼べよ。人通り見張っておいてやっから。
どうも。イグニスは常識があって助かるよ。まあとりあえずは僕に任せておいて。
I slowly opened the rusty door. I deliberately made my footsteps heard. There was a small shadow of a figure standing in the back. I began to speak. Right, there was the boy, gripping his chest. He seemed in pain and was breathing
いや
heavily.
ちょっといいかな。
何あんた。
そんなに警戒しなくても僕は怪しいものじゃないよ。
どこがいきなり慣れ慣れしく話しかけてくるし、いい大人が平日なのにぶらついてるし。
I could be Karya with Makaido. Oh, that would be so cute too.
どっからどう見ても怪しい中年のおじさんなんだけど。
You calling me sick? You the one that's sick and in the wrong world, boy.
一理あるね。
I accepted what it looked like. I took a minute to stand there and just talk.
説明が難しいんだけど、僕はほんの少し君と話がしたいだけなんだよ。阿部刈谷君。
なんで俺の名前。
ほら、君先日妙なアンシャンテっていう喫茶店、それさ、どうして立ち寄ったのか理由を教えてもらえないかな。答えづらいなら僕から言おうか。君は原因不明の体調不良で苦しんでた時、引き寄せられるように店に入った。それでちょっと体が楽になった。違うかな。
どうして俺の体調のことまで。
決まってる。君が体調不良で辛い思いをしてるのも、人と違うことで苦しむのも、君が人間じゃないからさ。
The temperature around us dropped suddenly. I could feel the cold air begin to envelop me. I knew it. He does understand he has this ability. So what he really is
突然のことで理解できないかもしれない。でも聞いてほしい。君はただの人間じゃなくて、元来別の世界に生まれるはずだった妖精。その氷を司る力も、それが理由だ。
I really needed to calm him before he starts demonstrating his full power.
大丈夫。僕は君の味方だ。それと、あの喫茶店のマスターも。一応専門の機関に所属してる。君みたいな力を持つ者に対しては、それなりに詳しいんだ。心配しなくてもいいよ。妖精についても少しは研究も進んでる。だからきっと君のことも。
研究。
Before I realized it, it was too late. At the sound of that word, the boy began glaring as if I attacked him.
やだ。
However, his rejection was at a far greater level than I expected.
研究ってまた俺を監禁して調査するんだろ。珍獣みたいに動物みたいにみんなで囲んで笑い物にしながら。
Just with that, I put together what kind of past he had been
だ
through.
からあんただって同じだろ。信用できる要素なんて一つもない。
きっと君はその体で辛い目にあったんだろうね。なら 僕が信用できないのもわかる。でも僕も引けないんだよ。君が僕を信じられないとしても、僕は君みたいな子を何が何でも保護しなきゃいけない。
は？保護？捕獲じゃなくて。
いや、保護であってるよ。君がその力で誰かを傷つける前に守りたいんだ。何？君自身がね。
されるつもりはないって言ったろ。
I don't think he's coming peacefully. I figured it might come to this.
僕は僕の仕事をするまでさ。君こそ僕相手にどうするんだい？その力を使ってみる。
そうだね。どんだけ悪どいやつもこの力で大体退けてきた。大人ってのはさ、痛い目を見なきゃ自分がどんだけのことをしてんのかわかんないんだよ。
案外大人の方が子供より物の善悪がわからないのかもしれない。
だったらもう俺のことは放っておいてくれよ。
Oh snap. He gone. The warehouse was filled with water from the pouring rain. I jumped right before my feet would be frozen in the small bodies of water. However,
ほっといたら死んじゃうから声をかけたんだけどね。
the reason why he's become so aggressive must be because he realizes that his life is draining away.
というか、寒い。もうちょい着込んでくるべきだった。
I tried to run as the ice froze the warehouse, then... Dang. Small projects of ice were flying toward me, but I managed to cut them down with a knife.
派手にやるね。子供は後先考えないから怖いな。
But if a stranger came by talking about research and protection, I guess I'd expect a pretty intense response. So what do I do now? My mind was racing as I dodged his attacks.
嫌だ。捕まったらまたこんなことになる。俺はやっとあったかい家族を手に入れたのに。
With his scream, the stacked wooden boxes crumbled, unable to handle the sudden change in temperature. The boy, probably losing his mind now, began screaming as if his life depended on it. Changelings. This was not something born of the mischief of fairies. It was found in folklore. It was when fairy and human blood mixed, causing the chance for ancestral relapse, giving fairy traits to a descendant. Karya Abe is one of those beings. Unfortunately for him, his powers came shortly after he was born, and he was proven to be non-human by those closest to him, even his biological parents. What happened next was a classic tragedy. Afraid of Karya, even though he was kin, they left him in solitude. He was completely neglected by his own parents. It seemed like there was no decent people in his life. He searched for help, but was persecuted and deceived instead. He ended up being sold into the darkest pits of society. There, he could have died at any moment, and there, his grandmother realized what happened. She came to save him from his living hell. Shortly after, though, she passed away. His relatives, that couple I'd gone to before coming here, were the ones who adopted and took Karya in. Even though they knew of his powers, they showed no fear nor pity to him. It was an honest love. It was pure. That's why.
それを奪われるなんて絶対に嫌だ。
Yes, even if he died. All of a sudden, it was hard to breathe. The tiny amounts of water in the air must have begun to freeze. And not only that, I could feel his gaze on me. He must have been staring to see when I'd stop moving. I felt like the very blood in my body was beginning to freeze. I really didn't think he was this strong. I dropped to my knees, and right as I began to lose consciousness, Ignis, save me! Yes.
せえな。ビキビキバキバキやかましい。なんかあったら呼べっつったろが。
Heat me up with your love. Like a comet, the demon beast of fire comes crashing down with a roar. He was adorned with fire, and the flames melted the ice all around the warehouse. Karya's body flinches at the suddenly rising temperature within the warehouse.
ナイスタイミング。
Duh. Ice's natural enemy is fire. It's a fact even a child would know. As soon as I caught my breath, I ran into him. I catch Karya's frail body as it began to fall forward.
とりあえず一件落着かな。彼も。でもイグニス、君の炎はこの子に負担が大きいみたいだ。悪い。
見りゃわかる。つうか、俺の炎とか関係なく、そいつかなりやべえんじゃねえか。
ああ、思ってたより数倍ね。一刻の猶予もない。これはもう本人の同意なんて取ってる場合じゃないね。
My fingers shivering from the cold began to dial a number. It was Katone's.
もしもし。例の少年、ひとまず保護したよ。それと、カヌスは戻ってるかな。あ、それなら話は早い。カヌスに伝えておいて。妖精界メディオへすぐにゲートをつなげられるようにってね。
Fairy World.
陛下、間違いないようです。
なるほどな。
It must have been about an hour since that child was brought to Enchanté. Mr. Karu and I were led by Canis. Mr. Demon King brought the boy soon after into the fairy world Medio. Because Ignis's flames were bad for the boy's body, he stayed at Enchanté with number 2. Normally, I wouldn't have found a reason to come here, but after seeing him, after seeing his painful expression, I couldn't just sit and wait at the cafe.
久しぶりじゃの。それと、リンドウもか。こんな形とは思わんかったが、また会えて嬉しいぞ。な、ベニーヤ。
いいえ、ちっとも全くこれっぽっちも。むしろまた厄介事を持ち込まれて大変迷惑です。呪われろ。
Why would you wish I get cursed for? You evil fairy.
相変わらずだね。こっちの妖精さんの容赦のなさは。
With a chillingly painful expression, Veneer glares at us with narrowed eyes.
例のカリア君とやらの状態は？
メディオを訪れたことにより、 今のところは落ち着いておるが、また人間界に長く戻ったら何が起こるかわからんの。
Dot dot dot. So this is a changeling, also known as a replaced child in European legends. This refers to events where human and fairy infants are swapped, but in this game it refers to ancestor reversion, where a human inheriting fairy blood regains such characteristics. I've read a bit about them in the books that Grandpa left behind, a concept rooted in changing one's ancestry. Mr. Karu and Canis explained the concept to me, but it didn't register, I mean. He just looks like an ordinary boy, and he's had such a terrible past.
仕方のないことでしょう。人間という種族は排他的。認識の輪の相手には攻撃的だ。
And what about you, Veneer? You over here trying to curse us. So what does that make you? Moving along. Dot dot dot.
これ、口が過ぎるぞ、ベンニーヤ。
Right, Titania. Let your servant know.
今はそれよりこの子のことじゃ。人間界で生きられぬ以上、本来の故郷であるこの妖精界メディオに引き取るべきじゃろ
う。しかし納得するだろうか。異常を自覚しつつも自分を人間だと考える者が
できるわけないだろう。
Dot dot dot. I turn around and Karya was sitting up from the pedestal, a pained look on his face.
なんなんだよ今の話。妖精とか異世界とかバカじゃないの。その姿といい、あんたら揃って頭おかしいんじゃない。
I assume he heard everything we were just talking about. With suspicious eyes, he glares towards Titania and the others.
突然の話だ。信じられるのも無理はない。だが、現に証拠は揃っている。
この世界に訪れて体調が安定したのが何よりの証拠じゃ。カヌスの予想に基づき調べたが、やはりそなたは氷の妖精の類のようじゃの。それもその身にはかなりの力を有しておる。
そんなの。
おとぎ話で。でも君、ここにいる中年相手に全力で力を使ってたみたいだし、否定するのは無理があるんじゃない？
少々厳しい物言いになるが、我から率直に告げよう、少年。お前はこのまま人間界へ長居すれば死ぬ。
わしも幼い妖精がこのまま悲しく命絶えるのを見届けるのは心苦しい。じゃから少年、悪いことは言わん。このまま妖精界に住まうとよい。
Karya could do nothing more but remain silent. His expression looked pained. Unable to watch anymore, I spoke up. Well, I don't think we should push him to make a decision right away. This is a lot for him to take in at once, and given his particular situation, we have to give him some time to think. Mr. Karu agrees with me by giving a single but affirming nod.
そうだね。ご両親のこともある。こうしてメディオの空気を吸って少しは体も安定したみたいだし、一度様子見しよう。構わないね、カリア君。
Karya, would you like to have some iced coffee?
いらない。
We returned to Enchant, and although we introduced ourselves again at a deeper level, his desire to speak shriveled into nothing. After seeing the other non-human customers, he finally acknowledged the other worlds. That's where he seemed to be at. Although, I'm not sure he's been able to accept the fact that he's also one of them. Mr. Karu, the one who brought him in, turns to face him.
さて、カリア君。君はこれからどうするつもりだい？このままアンシャンテにしばらく厄介になるっていう手もあるけど。
After a sigh,
もし自分について情報が少しでも欲しいなら、ひとまず GPM 本部に来てみない？
I don't think you should take him back with you to the headquarters. He may get experimented on, but that's just my thoughts. He gently proposes an idea.
GPM.
Karya had already been given a rough idea of what the GPM was. Why take him to the GPM, Mr.
世
Karu?
界のこと、妖精のこと、人外と呼ばれる今後、どんな道を選ぶにしても、彼にはとにかく情報が足りていない。ファンタスティックな世界に直接訪れていろいろ聞くっていう手もあるけど、彼はこの現代日本で育ってきたんだ。根拠のある証拠やデータを見せた方が分かりやすいかと思ってね。GPM には君みたいなケースも前例が多少なりともあるからね。何かの参考にはなると思う。どうか。
Without arguing, Karya nods. Mr. Karu then looks towards me.
ひとまず彼のことは任せて。大丈夫。悪いようにはしないから。
All right, I'll let Mr. Demon King and the others know. The next morning, it was about noon when all the regular members except Mr. Karu had gathered together.
なるほど、そういう事情でしたか。結界を抜けられたのも納得です。あれは基本的に人間用に調整したものですし。
んで、カリアっつったか。そいつはこれからどうするって？
I don't know. I'm sure he's in shock from having all these truths shoved at him all at once. I haven't gotten a call back from Mr. Karu yet either. After I gave my explanation, the one who gave me the difficult truth, with their shoulders slumped while doing so, was Kanas.
残念だが、あの少年が決断するのを待てる時間はそれほどない。GPM にもいつまでいられるか。油断すればすぐにでも命が危うくなるかもしれん。
No, he's still just in middle school. But it was true, he was clearly in pain as he walked away from Enchant as he left. Considering that, there aren't many options for him to consider.
つまり結局のところ、妖精界へ行くしかないのでは？なぜ迷う必要があるのでしょう。
んな簡単に決められんなら、あのガキもうだうだ言わねえだろ。
だね。今までの人生を全部捨てて新しい人生を歩めってことだし、それって本人的にはさ、死んだのと変わらないと思うよ。
It sounds like his parents now are really good people too. I'm certain he wouldn't want to separate from them. After Mr. Demon King explains himself, sipping a cold coffee, number 2 nods, understanding the situation. But in the end, maybe this isn't something we should be butting into. As I muttered my thought, the sound of my ringtone resonated through the cafe. I took my phone out of my pocket. Yes? Hello? This is Awaki?
ああ、リンドウだけど、今大丈夫かな？
Mr. Karu, is something the matter?
カリア君のことさ、報告をしておこうと思って。親御さんとも連絡してね。検査入院って扱いで GPM にもう一泊泊まってもらうことになったよ。
Hearing his voice over the phone, everyone got up from their seat and gathered around, wondering if something had happened. Oh, wait, Mr. Karu, everyone's here right now. Let me put you on speakerphone. 5 minutes later. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Alrighty. So, he didn't accept it then?
一応出せる証拠やデータは全部見せてあげたんだけどね。信じないというよりは信じたくないみたいなヒステリック状態というのが近いかな。そこで君に物は相談なんだけど、ちょっと GPM 本部に来て彼と話をしてもらえないかな。
Everyone else was also surprised at the unexpected proposal. Huh? Me?
そう。いろいろと考えてはみたんだけど、人外に関わり、それを受け入れている一般人。そういう事例の生きた証人である君に簡単なカウンセリングをしてもらえないか。もちろん無理にとは言わないけど、どうだろう。
I'll do whatever I can, or are you sure? I'll do whatever I can. I understand. I'm not sure if I can help, but I'll do whatever I can.
ありがとう。助かるよ。それと、実を言うとこの年頃の少年への対応の仕方が分からなくてね。年は取りたくないんだよ。
人外どうのこうのって前にガキの扱いなんてわかんね
うん。メリオの小さな妖精ともまた違う性質であるだろうしな。
聞けば同じ個体でも成長とともに人格や精神が変化するとか、なんとも複雑なのですね、人間は。
Well, it's not like he's a total child like you guys seem to be saying. Aside from Ignis, Takanas, and Tu, who have been alive for so long, Karuya and myself must seem like total children.
じゃあ今 SNS の方で地図と住所を送るから、カヌスとあとは適当な人員で来てくれるから。
Got it. By the way, how far is headquarters from here? If it's in some far away or secluded area, getting there today might be difficult.
割と近いから大丈夫。新宿にあるよ。
Oh, that really is close and right in the middle of the city. Wasn't the GPM supposed to be an organization secret from most regular people? The Government Paranormalism Measures, or GPM, where Mr. Karu is employed. I've heard so much about this organization so far, including how it's an organization with a lot of history dating back to the Heian period. Before the war, its goal was to eliminate non-humans, but now it's a peaceful entity. There's a branch in each prefecture of Japan, and they all report to Shinjuku branch. But I didn't realize they were this big of an organization. Wow, this is a pretty big building.
古今東西の古典的手法だね。木を隠すなら森の中ってね。
しかし、今更だが、アンシャンテの留守をいる一人に任せて大丈夫なのだろうか。
A little late to be bringing that up.
仕方ねえだろ。空気読めねえあいつ連れてくると同性論でカリアとかいうやつ追い詰めそうだし。
それはそうなのだが。
新作の乙女ゲームをやるって言ってたし、特に問題ないと思うけどね。
We weren't getting anywhere by talking like this, so I mustered up my courage and stepped into the large building.
GPM 本部へようこそ。アンシャンテご一行様。と、結構な大所帯で来たね。まあでも、以前の衝突を考えると、最低限の警戒はして当たり前か。
Oh no, that's not it. Canis is a fairy like Karia, and Mr. Demon King has a vice considering how long he's lived.
イグニスは彼が暴走した時の保険ってところかな。まあ人数が多いのは問題ないさ。それじゃあ本題の前に簡単にこのビルについて説明しておくよ。
This building, the GPM headquarters where Mr. Karu is stationed, is a skyscraper with 27 floors above ground and 3 below. Ha! My apartment building's higher than that, although what's happening in recent news makes me a bit... yeah, I'll leave that where it is. The floors are separated by department like general affairs, intelligence, research and development, etc., etc. The lower floors house convenience stores, cafes, and restaurants. We walked through the building guided by Mr. Karu as he talked about it to us. On several occasions, we passed by staffers walking by us and talking while they held cups of coffee in their hands. Huh? The more I see, the more this just feels like a trendy little office.
福利厚生をきちっとしてないと国家機関も成り立たないってことさ。危険が伴うならなおさらね。
He's right. I could hardly handle the environment at my last job and ended up quitting because of it. Is this everyone's first time at the GPM?
おう、正直イメージと違えな。てっきりもっと怪しい雰囲気っつうかジメジメした雰囲気だと思ってたぜ。
ま、開発課のフロアに行けばご期待通り怪しい雰囲気満載だけどね。ロボに魔法陣とはいえ別に毎日人外を捕獲したり争ったりしてるわけじゃないよ。平和的な解決ができればそれに越したことはないしね。
I bet. I think looking at everything here is changing my perception of the GPM. I've heard a lot about the GPM by now, and I've been intimidated by anyone from the GPM besides you, Mr. Karu.
それならよかった。呼び出した甲斐もあるってものだね。
A short while later, word traveled that Mr. Demon King and other non-humans were here, and people started to notice us.
ここだね。
Mr. Karu stops in front of a single room and turns toward us. So, Karia's in here?
だいぶ参ってたから、今検査担当者に預けてちょっと休憩してもらってるけどね。それじゃ扉を開くけど、準備はいいかな
？Yes. I don't know what sort of decision Karia will make in the end, but the time I spent with the customers from alternate worlds certainly wasn't erased. With the normal and abnormal getting together, forming friendships, I know I'd be able to show him that it's possible after sharing my experiences. With that thought, I nodded.
遅い。遅すぎるよ、リンド。天才の1秒は黄金よりも重い。って格言を知らないのかね。まあ、今僕が考えた格言なのだが。
A voice rang suddenly from the other side of the door. It wasn't Karia's, was it? Who is that?
おっと、この僕を知らないとは、なんて無知かつ哀れなんだ。ならば、教えてあげようじゃないか。
With a booming voice, the door flew open, and out came a very strange-looking person. He wore a white coat that seemed a few sizes too big, the fabric even flapping behind him.
さあ、歴史に残る気がする僕の名を存分に丹念に脳細胞に刻みたまえ。
He held a doll that looked like a fox.
僕こそ人外研究の第一人者にして GPM の頭脳こと開発課の課長。
And what stood out most, he was tiny, a full head shorter than me.
天才科学者帝明。
With all of his bravado, I couldn't see who was before us as more than a kid with a doll. ...
リンド、ここの警備はどうなっている？子供が紛れ込んでいるようだが。
Canis.
君たちがそう思う気持ちはよくわかるんだけどね。でも残念なことにこいつの発言は大体本当なんだよね。こう見えてとっくに成人してるんだよ、ミカドは。
Huh? He knew I didn't believe it from the way I looked at him. He shrugged his shoulders at us.
人を外見で判断するとは愚かの極みだね。まさに凡人の発想というか。人は見た目より心と頭脳だよ。
After he bends his head down to talk to his doll, he turns to us, or rather to Mr. Demon King.
さてさてさて、君たちのことはよーく知っているよ。リンドウがいろいろと報告してくれたからね。魔王に首なし騎士。ああ、残念ながら打天使君はいないみたいだけど。しかーし君たち2人だけでも大変興味深い人外だ。ぜひ後で話を聞かせてくれたまえ。
自然にイグニスの存在が無視されたような気がするのだが。
Come to think of it, Ignis had been oddly quiet the past few moments. As I turned around with that on my mind, I saw him there with a disgruntled look on his face, as if he swallowed something nasty. Ignis, do you know this person?
GPM はベスティアにたまに調査へ来てやがるからな。そん時たまたま遭遇してよ。
そう、遭遇して最強の魔獣にして貴重な個体である彼とお友達になったというわけさ。
会うたびに採血させろとかいう関係は拉致とは言わねえんだよ。
Mr. Demon King couldn't help but smile awkwardly at Mikado's excitement.
まあとりあえず話進めよう。彼女もさっき大真面目に扉開こうとしてたんだしさ。
As we were trying to deal with the situation,
いつまで無意味な時間稼ぎを行うつもりなのか。詳細なる時刻の提示
his no pupil's face. The new figure that appeared from the door grabbed Mikado's head with great force. Judging by his voice and height, he was a young man around Ignis's age, I think. But his appearance with his face and entire body covered in a hood and cloth surprised me a bit.
君って確か最近採用された。
ああ、助手くんじゃないか。あはは、奇遇だね。
矛盾を指摘する。ここで待機せよと指示したのはお前のはずだ、帝明。
ああ、んだよ、私に顔かよ。勘弁しろって。
案ずるな。名乗るほどのものではない。役職はこれの助手である。そして私はこれと違い、時間の無駄な消費を良しとしない。
The man ruthlessly calling Mikado a thing began to hand Mr. Karu paper after paper.
アベカリアに関する情報を各種まとめておいた。あとはそちらで話を進めるといい。
As soon as he finished his work, the man immediately walked away. He's very pragmatic, isn't he?
有能な助手だな。暴走しがちなお前もコントロールしてるし、いい拾い物じゃないか、ミカド。
ああ、うん。まあ、その通りだね。
Except he doesn't work very well with others. Mr. Mikaido quietly mumbles, I see. Maybe that's the reason why he hides his face. At a glance, he was scary and looked suspicious. But Mr. Karu talked to him normally. But, excuse me, if he's employed as part of an agency like the GPM, I'm sure he must be decent.
さてと、それじゃあこれを参考に仕事の話に戻ってもらおうか。
ああ、仕方ない。では入る前に最低限の説明をしておくよ。
Taking a few of the sheets from Mr. Karu, Mikaido began talking kind of
昨
awkwardly.
日今日と彼の同意を得た上でいろいろ調べさせてもらったけど、確かに彼の体は同年代男子の体と比べていろいろと差異があった。特に顕著なのは体中心温度。30度というのはあまりに低すぎる。常人なら低体温症と言える数字だよ。
30 degrees? I can't imagine being so cold. The lowest mine ever went was
しか
35.
しその一方で精神鑑定の結果の方は間違いなく普通の人間を指し示している。
やはり体は人外だが心は人間ということか。
だからこそ対応が難しいんだよ。GPM の立場としてはね。あくまで彼は先祖返り。人間の両親がいるのは間違いないんだし、人外と呼ぶことすら迷うところなんだ。
Leaving that comment with us, Mr. Karu stands at the door where Karia waited.
前置きはここまでにして、あとは直接本人と話すとしようか。
All right. Nodding and readying myself yet again, I wait behind Mr. Karu. However,
待ちたまえ。そこを開く前に大事な話がある。
for some reason, Mikaido placed his hand on Mr. Karu's arm, stopping him.
ミカド？
この扉の先には君たちの予想していない状況が待ち受けている。だから踏み込む前にいくつか約束してほしい。
随分と厳重だね。それで、その約
Looking over all of us in bated breath, Mikaido slowly puts together his
ま
thoughts.
ず中の様子を見ても慌てない。焦らず落ち着いて対応すること。
Okay.
できるだけ感情を荒げないこと。冷静さを失ったら判断を誤ってしまう。
Right.
そして一番大事なのは怒らないこと。特に僕を怒らないこと。
Huh?
実はあの少年安倍刈谷君なんだけどね。目を離したらいなくなっちゃったはは
So what was the point of us coming here? Yeah. ... Wait a minute. That aide earlier mentioned something about buying more time. Slapped that boy on the back of his head. Back at Enchanté. Oh shoot, this music. Oh darn. This dark night dimmed even the moon. The only light came from lanterns on the street. The sun had long left the sky, and the moon had taken its place. Karya Abe wandered listlessly through the dark streets like a ghost.
なんだよ。妖精とか異世界って。そんなファンタジーな話、誰が信じるかよ。信じられるもんか。
But no matter how much he denied it, his body had experienced it. That horrendous feeling of his consciousness and life melting away. The fairy world YEOW, and how for a moment he was freed from it all after breathing the air from that place. Grasping onto a tree by the road in hopes of calming his anger down, a cold air fell over his grip and the trunk began to frost over. He did it again. Seeing how much of a human he clearly wasn't, Karya jerked his hand away.
違う。俺は人間だ。あの地獄から解放されて、父さんと母さんに息子として人間として認めてもらった。
However, if it were all true at this rate, he would die before his own parents.
死にたくない。でも家族を手放したくない。なんでだよ。なんで両方選んじゃダメなんだよ。俺はどうすればいいんだよ。
The more he cried, the more the area around him turned into a world covered with ice from his freezing breath. After realizing Karya had disappeared from the GPM headquarters, we all split up and went around searching for him. Mikado and the other GPM staff searched inside of the headquarters building. Mr. Demon King contacted number 2 and both began to search using their powers. Canis and Ignis went into Shinjuku. And on a hunch, Mr. Karu and I came back to this town.
家族にこだわってたみたいだし、自宅周辺にいると思ったけど、これは外れかな。
Still, I can't think of anywhere else Karya would be. Hello?
ああ、通じましたね。そちらは今どのあたりでしょう。現在地を教えてもらえますか？
Yeah. Number 2's voice was as calm as ever. I immediately turned the phone to speaker mode so Mr. Karu could hear him as well. I then sent him our GPS location, and then...
ちょうど良い位置にいますね。先ほどから私もアンシャンテを中心に周囲を調べてみたのですが、その付近、前回リンドウがカリアと遭遇した場所にて異常なほどの気温低下を確認しました。
A decrease in temperature, could that be...
カリア君だね。でも倉庫の中だけじゃなく、周辺にまで影響を及ぼしてるってことは。
ええ、おそらくですが、妖精の力が暴走しているのでしょうね。とはいえ、私ならばすぐに追いついて彼を捕獲できますので、ご安心を。
Mr. Karu crosses his arms and thinks over number 2's suggestion. His voice changed a little as it seemed he had come to make a decision.
君はミシェルたちに連絡しつつ、上空で待機してくれないかな。できればその氷の力とやらを結界か何かでそれ以上広げないよう抑えてくれると助かる。 僕が向き合うから。
なぜですか？ただの人間であるあなたよりも私が出た方が確実かつ安全でしょう。
もっともな意見だけどね。彼はまだ半分人間なんだ。人間であることを諦めていないんだよ。なら同じ人間の大人である僕こそが彼を導いてあげなきゃいけない。
Mr. Karu, as he spoke quietly, I would say, don't push yourself, or please be careful, don't push yourself. Right, Kari is a kid, and you're an adult, but no matter how old you are, you're still one of my guests, and someone I cherish, so please, don't push yourself.
ありがとう。いいね。GPM 職員じゃなくて、お客として扱ってもらえるのは。
It was a really hard call, but in the end, I nodded to Mr. Karu in agreement with his idea. 2. If something happens, I'm gonna ask you and everyone for help. For right now, I hope you can get behind Mr. Karu in his point of view.
構いませんが、ではミシェルたちには私の方から連絡しておきます。
After hanging up, I looked at Mr. Karu. Mr. Karu, let's go!
OK。じゃ、こんな夜分にうろつく不良少年へお説教しに行くとしようか。
Oh, I hate looking at that rain. The weather was quick to change and raindrops began to fall from the sky. Mr. Karu and I ran through the rain and quickly reached the old abandoned factory. He went right back to this factory? Come on. And there we found him. ... It wasn't a feeling, it was real. A terrifyingly cold chill ran across my skin, as if protected by the white freezing air that hung over the warehouse. This child froze everything around him with each breath he took. Karia. I could see it in his eyes. The composure I had seen yesterday was no longer there. Thinking about fairies, what he should believe in, being afraid of his past. I'm sure he was blind to any of those thoughts right now.
もともとも不安定というか限界だったんだろうね。
It's because he was mentally exhausted that all of this has happened.
かな。まあ今後の人生の身の振り方なんて中学生が抱えきれるような問題じゃないよね。
Determined, Mr. Karu softly continued.
どれだけ拒絶しようと答えは出さなきゃいけない。出すための一歩を踏み出さなきゃいけない。考えることを放棄したら最後なんだ。その先にあるのは虚しい結果だけ。だから。
So that's why I have. Oh, excuse me, Karu. Go ahead.
あとはいろんなことを後悔してきた人生の先輩。大人としてね。
Mr. Karu.
君はここで待ってて。幸い彼、自分の身を守ってるだけで近づかなければ大丈夫そうだし。
Mr. Karu continued, his breath white from the cold as he smiled.
彼が大暴れして疲れた後、美味しいコーヒーを入れてあげる役目を任せたいんだ。
Of course, Anshan is always there to treat its guests to a delicious coffee and a nice place to rest.
いいね。それでこそアンシャンテのマスターだよ。
Smiling, even though he was worried about me, Mr. Karu turned toward Karia. In this intense cold, he took off a layer under which he was hiding something. He held up a weapon, and then
それ
he threw it to the ground without hesitation. Surprised at this action, Karya's eyes were obviously shocked.
この間は怖がらせちゃったからね。そのお詫びもあるけど、もとより子供へのお説教に武器なんて必要ないさ。
Mr. Karu walks forward. He advanced toward Karya, defenseless as ice kept spreading everywhere.
ケレナ
More of those icicle shards. Ice flies by and grazes Mr. Karu's face, but he doesn't try and dodge them. He just continues walking straight directly toward Karya, but it was eventually too much. Slump. Coughing, he fell to his knees, and as he was about to lose consciousness, Mr. Karu! I called to him without thinking. He woke.
おお、危ない危ない。今なら眠ったら死ぬぞとかいうお決まりのす。
Under biting frost, he forces his frozen face into a smile.
でもいいね。あの子の声はこんな場所でもよく通る。
Mr. Karu finally reached Karya and stood there right before his eyes, although he did nothing but stand there, staring right into Karya's face, unable to withstand the pressure. It was Karya. Blasting white frost everywhere, fresh blood splatters the surroundings. The arm Karya put up to protect himself went limp. Mr. Karu? Mr. Karu grunted with sharp blades of ice thrusted into his body. The blood spilling from him left swirled marks on the ice.
さすがに君もここまでのことはしたことないだろ
う。違う。今のは俺じゃ。
After Mr. Karu struggled to speak, Karya crouches down on impulse. Trying to shake off the reality of the situation, he began to shake his head too.
アベカリア
His shout echoed through the building.
逃げるな僕をよく見ろこれが考えることを放棄した君がもたらしうる結末の一つ君命が危ういとかどこに住まうべきだとかこの際今はどうでもいい自分が何者なのかを直視しろ
俺は
でなければ君はまた同じことを繰り返すことになるぞ今度は大事だと思う人を相手に
Karya gulped down in shock. This is me.
父さんと母さん傷つけるかもしれない存在
ああそうだよ逃げて逃げ続けてふと気がついた時にそんな悲劇が起きてからじゃ遅いんだ
Hold on. Let's see. The voice should be a little bit higher. Oh, it is high. Okay, so let's have the... That's already high. Okay. Back. Save.
自慢のご両親なんだろう君の力を知ってもなお受け入れてくれた人たちなんだろう 少しでいい。自信を持つんだ。
Oh, the sage advice of Karu-san.
彼らが認めてくれた自分が何者であろうと変わることはないって。
Tears streamed down from Karya's eyes. The drops hit the ground silently.
ごめん。
All the ice around us started to break apart. At the same time, the shards of ice that pierced Mr. Karu broke apart as well. His body fell to the ground. Mr. Karu! I ran over to him and held him up, but that didn't change the fact that he had serious injuries.
俺のせいで。
Karya knelt beside me and looked like there was still a terror lingering within him. Then, with his face all twisted, clearly showing the severity of his injuries, Mr. Karu forces himself to smile.
泣かなくていい。反省は後でいいさ。ともかく今、また君は多くの力を使ったんだ。ああ、ダメだこれ。さすがに限界。ごめん。あと。
Don't croak on me, old man.
おい
Mr. Karu? Right as Mr. Karu had completely lost consciousness.
リンドウって普段は適当なくせに妙なところで頑固だよね。
ま、そんだけこのガキに思うところがあって。
Mr. Demon King, Ignis, what do I do? Mr. Karu, he...
ああ、大丈夫。ちゃんと助けるよ。すぐにアンシャンテへ向かおう。イルとカノスも手当ての準備をして待ってる。
まあリンドウは人間の病院の方がいいんだろうが、怪我の原因を追求されたらめんどくせえだろ。
大丈夫なの？この人死なない？
新規生化をすんなガキ。こんぐらいでくたばる程度のやつにアンシャンテの監視役なんて務まらねえよ。
Ignis effortlessly lifted up Mr. Karu's body, and we hurried back to the cafe. Let's get Karya to Medio. The rain that was drenching the streets had stopped, and the droplets of water on the windows began to thin. After Mr. Karu was carried up to one of the empty rooms on the second floor, Number 2 began to use his powers to heal him. Although he lost a lot of blood, his wounds fortunately weren't as deep as I thought. I'm sure he's resting soundly in his bed right now. Meanwhile, as Karya sat there quietly in the store, do you want something to drink? You didn't get to finish your drink the last time you were here after all.
怖くないわけ。
Huh?
こうして俺と一緒にいるの怖くないのかって話。俺がさっき何したかあんただって見てただろ。
Karya was shaking as he asked me that. He was terrified at the answer he thought I was going to give him. Before I answer that, I'd like to ask you to do something. Try drinking my coffee. I poured coffee extracted from dark roast beans into a glass with ice in it. I made sure to be quick as the flavor would dissipate if it cooled too slowly. It needed to be on the thick side too, otherwise the flavors would get dull. Here you go. I handed the iced coffee to Karya, who looks at me with a suspicious face.
どう見たって普通のコーヒーにしか見えないけど。
Just try a sip. I watch quietly as the young boy hesitantly brings the cup to his mouth. How does it taste? Boo. Here I was hoping you'd love it. I still got a lot to learn.
でもこれ魔王とか鎧の人とかが飲んでたのと同じだろ。だからてっきりすごい味とか変な効果があるのかと思ってた。
No, nothing like that at all. This place is just a regular cafe. With a look of bewilderment on his face, I smile softly and continue. Mr. Demon King, Canis, Number 2, Ignis, and Mr. Karu, all the coffee I serve them is from this completely ordinary human world. But everyone loves drinking it, and they all have preferences. I brought the coffee I poured to my mouth, the same beans as the one in Karya's drink. But these were a light roast and had a fairly light flavor to them. It's a pretty rough example, but I feel like the difference between humans and non-humans are like coffee beans. Roast, water temperature, brewing method, the taste can change depending on all that. But the beans all come from the same place.
それ遠回しに俺は人間だよって言って慰めてくれてるわけ。
No. I tilt my head to the side and speak again. You're a non-human. Regardless of who you are mentally, physically, there's no denying it. But, you know, in terms of being a guest here, drinking coffee, to me, Mr. Karu's the same as everyone else. I waved my hand, though, gesturing that I know I can't explain it very well. If you'll drink my coffee happily, it doesn't really matter who you are. It just makes me happy that you're here. So Karya Abe, personal guest in my shop, I want to say thanks for drinking my coffee. I'd love it if you came to visit again. Mr. Karu said so too, remember? Believe in yourself like your parents do. You can be confident that I'm here to help. As the owner of Enchanté, you'll always be treated as a guest of this house. Regardless of how you see yourself or what path you chose, Enchanté will always welcome you to come and drink a cup of coffee.
あんたおかしいんじゃないの？人外をコーヒーに例えるとかさ。
I guess I've gotten used to them. After a short silence,
結局は俺にはもう選択肢なんて一つしかない。
Karya looked down. He managed to squeeze out the words that were as bitter to him as the coffee he tried.
両親には必死に隠してきたけど、最近はもう外で生活してるだけでも呼吸が苦しくなってくる。苦しくなって何も考えられなくなって、ふとしたことで力が漏れる。だからこのままじゃ俺またさっきの林道さんみたいに誰かを
いやいや、勝手に殺さないでくれるかな。
A voice cuts Karya off. Surprised, I looked toward the sound and there stood Mr. Karu, wearing his signature smile.
おじさんもまだまだ未練がいっぱいあるからね。そう簡単には死ねないよ。例えば、そう。今期の特撮ものの最終回だってまだ見てないんだからね。
Mr. Karu, you should still be resting.
心配ご無用。イルの若干適当な砲術のおかげで傷も塞がってるよ。
Winking at me, he sits down to Karya. Karya's shoulders seem to flinch.
ごめんなさい。俺のせいで怪我を。
言ったでしょ。心配ご無用って大した怪我じゃないさ。そう。わざわざ GPM に報告する必要もない程度のかすり傷ってね。
Understanding what Mr. Karu meant, Karya's eyes open wide. Mr. Karu responds in turn.
で、カリア君、君はどうしたい？
どうって俺は。
おっと、道が一つしかないって答えは現金かな。言ったろ、自分を信じろって。その信じた君を支えるのはここにいるマスターである彼女もうちのとんでも常連もきっと君のそれでも君は君の望みを口にするのが怖いかい？
Karya squeezes his hand into a fist and then
両親と離れたくない。一緒にいたい。死にたくない。でもこの力で父さんと母さんを傷つける方がもっと怖い。どっちも選べないよ。どんなに中途半端でもそれが。
with a wavering voice, without enveloping himself in ice, finally, as a normal middle school boy, he let out his true feelings.
それが君の答えか。なら僕も僕で約束を果たそうかな。君が選んだ道を支えるために。体は人外、心は人間。ミシェルの言葉を借りるなら、君はいわば半分半分。極めて特殊な状況だ。けど、このアンシャンテっていう場所は、君と同じ半分半分なんだよ。
それってどういう？
Mr. Karu glances at me, and I nod. Karya, I was talking with Mr. Karu in the room earlier, but do you want to help out here at the cafe? Yeah, you got a part-timer.
このガキを店で雇うだ
He said that's child labor, boy. Stop. I used this opportunity when everyone was here handling cleanup from the incident and nursing Mr. Karu's wounds to discuss the matter.
なるほど。アンシャンテで働くことで定期的に養成会を訪れさせるってことか。
それだけじゃないよ。帝の話だと、カリア君の症状は養成会に触れる機会さえ増えれば徐々に改善するものらしい。時間はかかるかもしれないけど、うまくいけばそのうち学校にも通えるようになるんじゃないかな。
ですがそれはアンシャンテから長期にわたって離れればすぐさま彼は命の危機に陥るのでしょ
う。あくまで決断を先延ばしにするだけに過ぎんだろう。だが
Yeah, I'm suggesting this because of what Karya decided just now. I just want to prioritize what he wants.
先延ばし、大いに結構じゃない。それだって彼が持ってる立派な権利だ。もちろん将来的には自分で生きる道を決めなきゃいけない。また大きな選択があるのは間違いない。
With a gesture from Mr. Karu, Karya agrees with a nod.
その参考にするためにちゃんと自分への向き合い方とか人外の生き方とか力とかこのアンシャンテでの日常を見て勉強したい。
いいんじゃない。人外を身近に感じるって意味ではこんなにぴったりな場所はないだろうし。
Ignis, are you okay with this?
なんで俺の許可を求めんだよ。確かに驚きはしたが、 今のマスターはお前だろ。だったら好きに
That's
すれば
right. I'm Big Boss Lady. Ignis waved my question away, but seemed to be in agreement, along with everyone else. Thank you. Come on, Karia. Let's greet everyone. You'll be a member of Enchanté now, so proper introductions are in order, alright?
わかった。阿部カリア、14歳、中学生。人外のこと、まだまだ俺自身も分かってないけど、これからよろしくお願いします。
よろしくね。俺は魔王様のミシェル。何でも気軽に聞いてちょうだいな。
我はメディオの首なし騎士ことデュラハン、カヌス・エスパードだ。
デュラハン、首なし？首がない。
Wait, you just now noticed that?
だってメディオにいるときは首あったし、あと鎧着てたし。
Oh, that's right. Well, you'll get used to it. I just kind of got used to it too.
そういうものかな。
Once Karia's introductions and greetings were over, number 2 looks over to Mr. Karu.
しかし無茶をしましたね、リンド。まだ傷は塞がっていないはずでは。
What? Is that true?
私は治癒系の砲術は増えてとしていますから、施したのはあくまで応急処置程度。
Didn't Mr. Karu say that his wounds had closed up? I glanced over at Mr. Karu, who smiled to dismiss the matter.
そこはほら鍛え方が違うから。マスターの愛ある励ましのおかげでもうすっかり良くなったよ。
Mr. Demon King's eyebrow piked, and slowly began to stand up. And with casual movements, he gets behind Mr. Karu and...
Hey.
I gotta capture this scene. I have to. He gently pokes at his ribs with his finger. Is that all he pokes? Okay, I'm done. Mr. Karu, are you okay?
大丈夫。大丈夫だよ。ただミシェル、君はいつか殴る。
ごめん。ついついね。元気になったらいつ
We're
でも
so
受け入れま
cute
すとも。
together. Just two handsome men in camaraderie.
痩せ我慢していたのか。油汗が大変なことになっているぞ。
おい、この3割死人が10割死人になる前にとっととベッドに寝かしてこい。
Right.
あ、俺も手伝いとか。
いや、ここは彼女に任せておけばいい。カリア、お前には我々から今しばし人外について話聞かせるとしよう。
Step by step, trying to reduce the impact on his body from each step, we carefully go up the stairs. I put Mr. Karu's arm over my shoulders and support him as best as I can. Oh, love scene. I knew it! You were pushing yourself, huh? I sigh as Mr. Karu trying to laugh off the matter. He must have been enduring intense pain that whole time we were talking to Karuya. How many times do I have to tell you? You should have said something. You could have at least given me a little alert that you were planning on working yourself hard enough to go get injured.
カリア君偉そうにお説教した後に君にお説教されちゃうとは年上の威厳も固ましだね。
No, I respect you more. Mr. Karu murmurs jokingly, but I suppose I should be relieved enough that he's still able to joke around at all. As I felt some relief within myself. Yes?
カリア君のことあれでよかったのかな。
I'm not sure. That's up to Karia now. But at the very least, I think he found the courage to honestly look at himself thanks to you. Mr. Karu shouting in that moment, he reached him when no one else could.
そうか。僕の独りよがりになってないならいいんだけどね。
Huh?
彼が何も知らないままに異世界人外の世界に足を踏み入れてしまって、その結果
I thought about how that could really... Oh, excuse me, Mr. Karu. I keep interrupting you. Your sage words.
あの時止めていれば、そう自分が後悔する。僕はそれだけは嫌だったんだ。結局のところ、僕は自分が可愛いだけの最低な大人だよ。
You know, you're a crazy old nut of a man. Mr. Karu seemed somewhat lonely, mumbling with and chastising himself. Mr. Karu? Did something ever happen in the past between you and non-humans?
どうしてそう思うの？
I just had a feeling. You didn't seem worried about the future, as much as you were feeling regret. That's how I heard it anyway. Adding that I wouldn't cry any further, Mr. Karu thanks me and smiles.
後悔はしてるよ。この世界に何も考えず気楽に足を踏み入れた自分に心配しないで。人外は危険とは思ってるけど、別に毛嫌いしてるわけじゃないさ。ただね、もっと別の道があったのかもとふとした瞬間に思わずにはいられない。偉そうに言っておきながら、僕自身が選んだ道に自信が持てないんだ。だからまだ選ぶことができるカリア君にはそんな後悔をしてよ。
After murmuring his explanation, and says when it comes to non-humans, he gives unsparing warnings to help put his mind at rest. But it seems this attitude has come from his past regrets. He promises to rest and lay on the bed in the guest room for the day. The tumultuous events surrounding the newest face at Enchanté quietly came to an end. Hey, we at chapter 6, y'all. All right, so we're gonna stop right here. That was a long chapter. That was really long. Really great. We're introducing new characters. Hopefully we get like a female non-human other than the Queen Titania. But I'm really enjoying this so far. I don't know how many chapters are in this game, but hopefully it's long. I'm sure there's multi-branch just between the characters, so I'm sure the replayability factor of this game is just tremendous. And also, if you guys haven't known, this month is July 1st. So used to saying next month for everything. But there's new scenes and dialogue for Doki Doki. So I'm going to be playing that again, Doki Doki Literature Club. Just Monica! I can't wait to get started on that again. So, again, we're going to leave off for right now. It's a new month, so instead of finishing this game by the end of this month, it's going to be my darn goal to get this finished by the end of next week. And my birthday is in 7 days, so it'll be nice if I could finish it on that day. But as always, much love, much peace, and catch you on the flip side. Have a FLairific day, y'all.